Ever feel like in the world of coding, things could be, way more efficient?
Oh, absolutely. Efficiency is the holy grail, isn't it?
Right. And that's what we're diving into today, this idea of cleaner code, less repetition, fewer late nights hunched over the keyboard, and the tool that's caught our eye, the ABP Framework.
It's a game changer for sure. For developers who want to build really solid, maintainable software, ABP is like, well, imagine having a whole team of expert coders backing you up.
Okay, I like where you're going with that. So for our listeners who might be new to this whole world, how would you sum up the ABP Framework in like a sentence or two?
Sure. So imagine ABP as a kind of blueprint or a toolbox preloaded with all these really powerful, reusable components and structures. So instead of building everything from scratch, you can focus on the unique aspects of your project, the stuff that really makes it special.
Got it. So it's like instead of baking a cake from scratch every single time, you've got this awesome pre-made cake mix that takes care of all the basics, and you just add your own special ingredients, your own frosting to make it your own.
Exactly. And because you're using these pre-tested, well-structured components, the chances of running into errors or inconsistencies way down the line, they plummet. It's a huge time saver in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's make this practical, all right? Let's say we have two developers, both super talented, both given the same task to build an API for online money transfers, we'll call them John and Kevin.
Classic John and Kevin. I like it.
Right. So John, he's old school, maybe a bit of a maverick. He dives right in, coding everything from scratch, finding those accounts in the database, setting up the actual transfer process, and then, of course, handling all the possible outcomes. Did the transfer go through? Did it fail? Was there some kind of error? John's got to write code for all of that.
Yeah, that's a pretty common way to do it. The good old manual approach.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, in theory. But as you can imagine, things can get a little bit messy, right? Especially when you're talking about something as critical as money transfers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about all the things that could potentially go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Incorrect account numbers, insufficient funds, maybe a server hiccup somewhere along the way. If John has to write code to handle each of those scenarios individually, well, his code could end up being very long, super complex, and frankly, a nightmare to debug if something does go wrong.
Okay, so that's John, up to his elbows in code. Now, Kevin, on the other hand, he's got ABP in his toolkit. So how does Kevin approach this money transfer API differently?
So Kevin, the smart cookie that he is, he leverages the power of the ABP framework. Instead of writing everything from scratch, he uses those pre-built tools we talked about earlier. ABP has modules specifically designed for things like database interactions. So instead of writing dozens of lines of code to find and access those accounts, Kevin can do it, like one or two, because ABP provides a streamlined, standardized way to do it.
So less time wrestling with the nitty-gritty, more time for the elegant, big picture stuff.
Exactly. ABP lets Kevin focus on the core logic of that money transfer. How are the accounts being validated? How are we encrypting this sensitive data? How do we make sure this whole process is lightning fast and secure? These are the juicy bits, right?
Right, that's where the real innovation happens. So while Kevin's crafting that core logic, ABP is in the background working its magic. What's happening behind the scenes?
So ABP's got him covered on several fronts. First off, it's handling all the database transactions. Whenever Kevin needs to read or write data, ABP makes sure those transactions are handled in a safe, efficient way. It's like having a super reliable assistant managing all the data flow so Kevin doesn't have to sweat the small stuff.
Makes sense. What else is ABP quietly taking care of?
Well, it's also handling logging, so keeping a detailed record of everything that's happening during these transfers, which is crucial for tracking errors or suspicious activity down the line. And let's not forget security. ABP comes bundled with robust security features, so things like user authentication, authorization. Those are, again, handled in a standardized, secure way, right out of the box. It's like having a top-notch security system built right into your application.
Okay, so we're starting to see the bigger picture here. John, our manual coder, is likely up to his eyeballs in code by this point, while Kevin, thanks to ABP, has probably written, like a fraction of the code?
Probably, yeah. And the beauty of it is, because ABP enforces best practices and provides that clear structure we talked about, Kevin's code is going to be inherently more organized and easier for other developers to understand.
Which is huge GE, especially when you're working on larger projects with multiple developers. Having that clean, consistent code base makes collaboration so much smoother.
Right. And it makes maintenance way less of a headache down the road. Imagine having to go back and make changes to John's massive, complex code base a year from now versus making a tweak to Kevin's streamlined, well-documented code. It's a night and day difference.
And that, I think, is the key takeaway here, right? This isn't just about saving a few hours of coding time. It's about the long game. It's about building software that is more robust, easier to maintain, and ultimately more scalable.
100%. And, the cool thing is this example we've been using, this whole money transfer API, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The ABP framework can be used to streamline and optimize all kinds of software development projects, from e-commerce platforms to social networks. The potential applications are practically limitless.
It's like ABP gives you this solid foundation to build upon, no matter what kind of digital structure you're dreaming up. And that right there, I think, is something worth exploring further.